Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Ajnanatirandhasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadarine Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Canto 7, Chapter 5, entitled The Signs of God. And we are reading from text 7. I'll read the verse a few times and then devotees can chant. Samyak vidharya tambalo Guru Gehe Dvijatibhi Vishnu Pakshaihi Pratichannair Nabidhetasya Dhiryatha Samyak vidharyatam balo Guru Gehe Dvijatibhi Vishnu Pakshaihi Pratichannair Nabidhetasya Dhiryatha. Once again, I will read. Samyak vidharyatam balo Guru Gehe Dvijatibhi Vishnu Pakshaihi Pratichannair Nabidhetasya Dhiryatha. Devotees can chant.
Samyak vidharyatam balo Guru Gehe Dvijatibhi Vishnu Pakshay Prati Janar Nabidyetasya Dhiryatha.
Anybody else would like to chant? Okay. I'll read the word-for-word translation. Samyak, completely. Vidharyatam, let him be protected. Bala, this boy of tender age. Guru Gehe, in the Gurukul, the place where children are sent to be instructed by the Guru. Vijati Bihi, by Brahmanas. Vishnu Pakshaihi, who are on the side of Vishnu. Pratichanaihi, disguised in different dresses. Nabidyeta, may not be influenced. Asya, of him. Dhihi, the intelligence. Yatha, so that. A translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The translation first. Hiranyakashipu advised his assistants, my dear demons, give complete protection to this boy at the Gurukul, where he is instructed, so that his intelligence will not be further influenced by Vaishnavas who may go there in disguise. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In our Krishna consciousness movement, the tactic of dressing oneself like an ordinary karmi is necessary because everyone in the demonic kingdom is against the Vaishnava teachings of Vaishnava teachings. Krishna consciousness is not at all to the liking of the demons of the present age. As soon as they see a Vaishnava dressed in saffron garments with beads on his neck and tilaka on his forehead, they're immediately irritated. They criticize the Vaishnavas by sarcastically saying Hare Krishna, and some people also chant Hare Krishna sincerely. In either case, since Hare Krishna is absolute, whether one chants it jokingly or sincerely, it'll have its effect. The Vaishnavas are pleased when the demons chant Hare Krishna because this shows that the Krishna conscious movement is taking ground. The great demons, like Hiranyakashipu, are always prepared to chastise the Vaishnavas, and they try to make arrangements so that Vaishnavas will not come to sell their books and preach Krishna consciousness. This was thus what was done by Hiranyakashipu long, long ago is still being done. That is the way of materialistic life. Demons or materialists do not at all like the advancement of Krishna consciousness, and they try to hinder it in many ways. Yet the preachers of Krishna consciousness must go forward in their Vaishnava dress or any other dress for the purpose of preaching. Chanakya Pandit says that if an honest person deals with a great cheater, it is necessary for him to become a cheater also, not for the purpose of cheating, but to make his preaching successful. I'll read the translation once again. Hiranyakashipu advised his assistants, my dear demons, give complete protection to this boy at the Gurukul, where he's instructed so that his intelligence will not be further influenced by the Vaishnavas who may go there in disguise. So Srila Prabhupada makes a few very wonderful points in the purports, and I just wanted to focus on those points, and we can discuss some of the other points as well that are coming out on the purport. So just for context, this, as you all been studying last few days as well, we've been studying this most wonderful canto, the 7th canto, and this particular chapter, the science of God, is one of the most wonderful chapters in this whole canto. So this whole canto is very glorious with the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu, and the killing of Hiranyakashipu by Lord Nrsimhadev, who appears towards the end of the canto. But the specific chapter, chapter 5, is very wonderful because it has the beautiful conversation between Prahlad Maharaj and Hiranyakashipu, his father. So the story goes like this, and you read it on the previous preceding days. I'll just for continuity recap it very quickly. That Prahlad Maharaj is the 5-year-old son of Hiranyakashipu, and just like any little child, he's sent to school. And a child of that age is taught some very basic things. And so his teachers are the sons of Shukracharya, and they're called Shanda and Amarka. And when they go to the school, they're taught various subjects that are not exactly appealing to Prahlad Maharaj because they're all materialistic subjects. And although Prahlad Maharaj is highly schooled in the science of devotional service by his guru, Narada Muni, and he heard that when he was in the womb of his mother, he's still forced to go to school because his father sends him there. So he attends the classes, but he's not very impressed by what he's hearing. But nevertheless, he goes, and after a few days, at the appropriate time, He's brought back and dressed very nicely by his mother, and his father has great affection for him. It's not like Hiranyakashipu started out from the very beginning hating Prahlad Maharaj. He had great affection, just like a father has for his son. And he had him sit on his lap and asked him, "My dear boy, what did you learn in school today?" Just like when we ask our kids when they come back from school, they ask them, "What did you learn in school?" It's a normal question. It's not something very unique or ominous by any nature, right? So it's a very normal question that a father might ask the child, "What did you learn in school?" And the son, Prahlad Maharaj, he speaks this very famous verse that Srila Prabhupada would quote a lot. Actually, Prahlad Maharaj said in text 5 that Tatsadu manye suravaridehinam sada samudvigna diya asatgrahat hitvatmapatam gruhamandakupam vanam gato yet harim ashrayeta. He says, "My dear king of the demons, what I've learned is," and I'm giving this sense of, maybe read the translation itself, but whatever I've learned from my spiritual master is that one should become a devotee of the Lord and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what I've learned. Because any other pursuit in materialistic pursuits will just lead us to darkness. It's like a deep, dark well. Gramanda Kupam. Kupa means well, where you can draw water from, a deep well. But Anda Kupam is a dark, blind well. There's nothing but darkness and misery in that well. So he says it's that kind of well. Vanam gato yat harim ashriyata. So one should go to the forest and take shelter of Lord Hari. So that's what instruction he gives. And when Hiranyakashipu hears that, he is not immediately upset or angry. He starts laughing. He starts laughing and says, "Well, looks like the intelligence of my son has been spoiled by the enemy." And so he calls his servants, who are the teachers of Prahlad Maharaj, Shandanamarka. And in this text 7, he tells them, "My dear demons, give complete shelter to this boy at the Gurukul, where he's instructed, so that his intelligence will not be further influenced by the Vaishnavas who may go there in disguise." And Srila Prabhupada makes a few points in the purport. The first point I will point out is he says that sometimes demons or people who are inimical to Krishna consciousness, they sarcastically call us the Hare Krishnas. They chant Hare Krishna sarcastically. But there are some people who also chant it sincerely. And so Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, in either case, since Hare Krishna is absolute, whether one chants it jokingly or sincerely, it will have this effect. So this is a very important point, right? That the holy name itself is all pure. And however we chant the holy name has tremendous effects. So I'll just want to quote one verse from the conversation between the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas. This comes in the 6th canto, where in the pastime of Ajamil chanted the name of his son Narayan, not necessarily chanting the name of the Lord with great sincerity or any such feeling. He just called out to his son because he was in pain. He was afraid he was going to die. So one of the verses that the Vishnu Dutas, the associates of Lord Vishnu, chant, and this is and if you wish to refer to it later, it's in the 6th canto, 2nd chapter, 14th verse, where it says, "Sanketam parihasam va, sthobam helanam va, Vaikuntanam agaranam ashesha gaharam vidhum." So Sanketam means as an assignation or indicating something else. Parihasam means jokingly or mockingly, actually, not just jokingly, mockingly. Parihasam actually means mockingly, to mock somebody. Sthobam. Sthobam is some kind of musical entertainment. Somebody might be just singing very wonderfully and they might be singing some bhajans, but not necessarily with any great devotion, but just as a musical entertainment. Or helanam, neglectfully. So this verse says that, I'll read Srila Prabhupada's translation, one who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately free from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly to indicate something else, as in the case of or Ajamil, who was chanting, actually calling his son's name, jokingly for musical entertainment or even neglectfully. This is accepted by all the learned scholars of the scriptures. So the point here is that one who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins. Right? So that is the power of chanting the holy name. So Srila Prabhupada brings out that point very wonderfully in the purport, where he says, sometimes when we chant or when we try to preach, people sometimes mock us, but even that mockingly chanting the holy name actually begins their spiritual life. That's the first point that I wanted to point out, where Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing that chanting of the holy name is all pure. So I was hearing His Holiness Sachinandan Maharaj speak about this point, and he was saying that one should not come to the conclusion that if one can derive great pleasure by just incidentally chanting the holy name, like how Ajamil did, then that's what we should aspire for. The logic that is used in the Shastra is that if even neglectful chanting can have so much effect, how much effect can purposeful chanting have? Mindful chanting have? If a mindless, neglectful chanting can have so much effect, then our goal should not be to say, well, that is the benefit, then why should I bother with anything else? The mindset should be that if that can have so much effect, then how can I chant sincerely, with devotion, with feeling, and how much more effect will that have? That is the first point that I wanted to make. And the second point that Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport is regarding what are the principles of Krishna consciousness and what are the externals of Krishna consciousness. He doesn't speak about that in the specific words that I'm using, but that's what he's saying in the purport. That there is the principles of Krishna consciousness, and then there's the externals of Krishna consciousness. So, and it's important for us as practicing devotees to understand the difference between the principles and the externals. Sometimes they get all combined, and it's difficult to differentiate between the principles and the externals. And I will dwell into this topic a little bit. Uh, the principles cannot be compromised. And we'll talk about what the principles are. All of you already know them, but I'll just repeat them and we'll discuss them a little bit. But the difference between the principles and the externals is that the principles cannot be compromised. They're not based on time, place, and circumstance. They're not based on your varnashrama. They're not based on whether you're a brahmachari or a grihastha or a vanaprastha or sannyasa. The principles of Krishna consciousness are timeless. The externals are based on time, place, and circumstance. They're based on time, place, and circumstance, and that's what we can delve into a little bit. So there are many places in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita where Krishna speaks about the principles. Uh, Srila Prabhupada very simply would say that the four regulative principles of no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, and sincerely chanting the holy name, the vow that we take in front of our spiritual master when we get our initiation, right? That, like for instance, in my case, the vow that I took was no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, and minimum 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and try to serve as a servant of the servant of the servant. Uh, so that's a principle. It's not something that will change if my ashrama were to change. Right? It's not varna based, it's not ashrama based. It's a principle that we accepted as a vow that we took. My spiritual master also speaks about like the three basic principles of the three legs of spiritual life that as Krishna conscious practitioners we attempt to follow. The first one is sadhana, or our spiritual practice, and the most essential spiritual practice is the chanting of the holy name. Right? I mean, our movement is called the Hare Krishna movement, and there's a reason for that because the essential practice that we have is the chanting of the holy name, chanting of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That is the most fundamental practice of our spiritual life. That is the most fundamental thing. So sadhana begins with us sincerely chanting holy name. And of course, the other aspects of sadhana, like fasting on Ekadashi and so on, they're part of, but essentially all these other aspects of sadhana are to help the primary aspect of sadhana of sincerely chanting the holy name. We can do kirtan, we can do so many other things, we can sing bhajans, but the fundamental practice of chanting holy name on beats, the prescribed number of rounds that we have, is the fundamental practice. So sadhana essentially begins there, and our ability to focus on maximizing the efficacy of our sadhana is key to our spiritual practice. Whether it means when we pick a time to chant our rounds in the morning, whenever it is, the place we pick, the posture, everything else is part of that sadhana. So we maximize the opportunity for us to be able to have good sadhana, to good chanting of rounds. They're just like a high performance athlete, if they have to perform at the Olympics or some such event, they plan their entire training session so that they can be at their peak performance during that event. It doesn't help if they're at their peak performance a month before the actual Olympic event. They have to be at their peak performance during that event so that they can then win that medal that they're aspiring for. So similarly, in our 24-day cycle, the time when we're sitting with our beads and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, our attention span, our state of mind, our focus, our consciousness, everything has to be attuned such a way that those 2 hours, 1 hour, 45 minutes, whatever time we take to chant our rounds, is attuned that we can maximize the opportunity to have the best possible rounds. And that is what sadhana is all about, right? That if an Olympic athlete, if they are at their peak performance 3 months before the Olympic race, but then they are not able to perform that well, they don't give them a medal. They don't tell them that, oh yeah, but you ran really fast 2 months ago, so let's give you the medal. No, it doesn't work like that. So similarly, we have to be at our most awake, most alert, most focused during the time of our japa. Right? If you're sleepy and tired and you're thinking of six other things, then the time we're investing in our japa is not utilized properly. So that's the fundamental principle of sadhana. The next principle, there's only three principles, right? From that perspective, right? So the second is sadachar, which is proper behavior. And of course, things like how we conduct ourselves internally or with others, all that comes as part of that. And sadachar uh, is very key aspect of our spiritual practice because all these things feed each other. If you don't have proper sadachar, then your ability to chant the holy name and perform good sadhana gets impacted. Uh, and I will not go so much into sadachar. All of you know what the aspects are. So, uh, and then the third aspect is sadhu seva or sadhu sangha, related. You cannot serve sadhus if you don't associate with sadhus. Right? So if you associate with sadhus, then you will get inspired to have good sadachar, and you'll get inspired to have good sadhana. Right? If you have poor sadachar, then sadhus are also not inspired to associate with you. And so all these three legs of the stool are important because they're holding aloft our ability to practice Krishna consciousness. So it's not like one can be just like a three-legged stool or a tripod. You cannot take one leg away and still expect that stool or tripod to stand. It'll fall. So all these legs, good sadhana, good sadachar, and and sadhu sangha, sadhu seva, all three are required for us to be able to have good Krishna conscious practice. So that is the point that is subtle point that Srila Prabhupada is making that the principles cannot be compromised. They're not up for interpretation or let's just follow what we want or let's not follow what we want. So that's not up for compromise. But Srila Prabhupada says here that for the purpose of preaching, uh, we can yet the preacher of Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada says, must go forward in Vaishnava dress or any other dress. So dress is one aspect it's the easy aspect of understanding externals. So in some cases, it may be practical to wear a specific dress. Some cases, it may be more appropriate to wear another type of dress, and so that you can still preach. But it doesn't mean that we compromise on principles. So principles never get compromised. But the dress is only one aspect. The other aspects of external, like how we speak, what kind of words we use, some of these things we may consider them details and we may consider them important. So it doesn't mean that they're not important. They are important. But at what point do we give stress to the externals is something that we have to understand. And the reason for that is not that the externals are not important, but it's very easy to catch on to the externals and only focus on the externals. So as 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 because we're all social animals. So man's a social animal, it's well known. So it's very easy to just catch on to the social aspects of being in a Krishna conscious movement, the the way people talk, the way people say, uh, please accept my humble obeisances. We say all those things. Do we actually mean them? Do we actually mean that in a way that actually we feel humble? So all those things are internal. We have to really understand what we have to develop as a character internally and not just focus on externals. Otherwise, they just become words that we use. They just become words that we use. We don't actually mean them. So when devotees write to each other, they will write, please accept my humble obeisances. And then it starts, and I've seen devotees start abbreviating that. P, what is that? PHAM, whatever that is. They abbreviate it. And so the whole essence is lost. And even if you write your servant, if you don't feel that way, then the whole essence is lost. Right? So Srila Prabhupada is actually talking about using our intelligence and time, place, and circumstances. So if you're a grasta having a job, and if you write a letter to your boss saying, please accept my humble obeisance as your servant, that would be strange. So that's not the time, place, and circumstance for that. So we have to use that intelligence. Srila Prabhupada always said, use your intelligence. Use your intelligence. There's a time, place, and circumstance for everything. Uh, so I don't want to go too much into, I know there's some controversies on this topic as well, so I don't want to wade too much into that. But the basic point is that the principles of Krishna consciousness cannot be compromised. The externals, we have to use our intelligence to see what's the best way for us to propagate and progress this movement of Krishna consciousness. And that's the opportunity that we have. So those were some of the points on this verse. I'm happy to let others weigh in, or if any questions anybody has to clarify some points. Hare Krishna. Would anybody like to add anything or have any questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I would like to thank you for a very nice class. And I'm compelled to add one thing that in the course of contending with certain details or external aspects of our Krishna conscious life, sometimes there we may see or think that there is a necessity to make some sort of adjustment, and we may conceive of an adjustment my understanding is that, and this is based upon comments that I have heard from Srila Prabhupada, that those adjustments have to be made with great care, and that it is generally the business of the acharya to make any adjustments when there is a necessity, and not just that anyone at all um, decides to make some sort of change. Um, and I'm speaking of the kind of more generalized standards that apply to everyone on an individual basis in one's personal life, um, particularly, I think, for householders. They may sometimes have to make certain adjustments based upon their circumstances. Um, some things may not be possible under the circumstances, but and so sometimes there's a need for some changes here and there. The problem is that sometimes what uh, what seems like uh, a circumstance in which an adjustment may be necessary, um, or reasonable, it may actually just be an inconvenience, and there is a tendency, um, and we saw this from early in the movement. Srila Prabhupada had to contend with the fact that we would um, tend to try to avoid inconveniences in our Krishna conscious life, sometimes using the excuse of time, place, and circumstance to justify making changes that are not actually necessary, but simply to avoid some personal inconvenience. Krishna conscious life entails all kinds of inconveniences, which we accept for the sake of the cultivation of Krishna consciousness. There are sometimes austerities, for example, um, rising early, bathing, sometimes having to bathe in cold water, even in the winter. Um, so there are all kinds of inconveniences, but there are principles to be followed. Certain things are supposed to be done, um, regardless of whether it is convenient or comfortable. We do them anyway because they're important and necessary. But there is a tendency sometimes to try to adjust things to avoid inconveniences or any discomfort, and this serves to erode the effectiveness of our sadhana bhakti. Um, and so Srila Prabhupada had to combat this tendency, trying to cultivate in his disciples a taste for austerity, a willingness to accept inconveniences for the sake of pushing on the movement, for the sake of advancement in Krishna consciousness, and with the explanation that um, changes generally are um, made by the acharya infrequently as conditions change sometimes there is necessity to make adjustments. But not that adjustments should be made at any time at all or by anyone at all, because it requires tremendous intelligence to be able to understand the implications of changes that are made. Without great intelligence, it's not possible to understand the chain of cause and effect as it plays out over a span of time. Sometimes changes that seem reasonable and insignificant in their effect can have profound effects over the course of time. And so the business of adjustments is typically done by only the most advanced individuals who are competent to understand clearly all of the implications of those changes. So Srila Prabhupada made some changes. And typically he discouraged us from making any additional changes, with the explanation that he had already made whatever changes were necessary. There was no necessity to change anything beyond that. And some things have changed since Srila Prabhupada's passing. There may be a necessity to make additional changes. And the GVC and individual gurus may see a necessity, and they may make some adjustments or concessions based upon the current and prevailing conditions. But I think it becomes a liability when devotees begin to think that it's okay to independently make adjustments and changes to the course of action, the scheme that has been laid out by our acharyas. We follow in the footsteps of the acharyas. They establish what the path is, and then we follow that path, not that we create our own path based upon our whims or what we think is good or reasonable or convenient. I see sometimes a lot of changes being made sometimes, which I feel certain, based upon my experience with Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada would not be happy with that change. I don't think he would accept the reasoning behind it. But sometimes devotees think that they have a good idea. I think we have to be careful. Sometimes we have an overinflated estimation of our intelligence. And so it's a good idea always, if we think that there is a way to improve upon something by making some sort of adjustment, it's a good idea to run it past your spiritual master and get his opinion and approval, not just that we act independently. That's generally the system, that for whatever we do, we consult with the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada always insisted upon that. He would chastise us if we ever acted independently. Um, he encouraged us to be independently thoughtful and to develop our ability to act independently, but that independence always had to be based upon what we had imbibed, what we had learned from Srila Prabhupada. Um, the principles, the underlying principles we would learn from Srila Prabhupada and then apply them in different kinds of situations, um, using our best intelligence when it was not possible to inquire from Srila Prabhupada to get a concrete answer as to what precisely should be done or what should not be done. But it was Srila Prabhupada's endeavor always to prepare us for the day when we would not have the benefit of his vapa, his personal bodily presence, and the opportunity to inquire from him directly. And so he left lots of directions in his books and recordings. Anyway, those are some of my thoughts, because I see sometimes changes being made that based upon my knowledge of Srila Prabhupada, and I know something of Srila Prabhupada. You know, I'm slow and dull and unqualified in all kinds of ways, but I did have the opportunity to hear a lot from Srila Prabhupada, and I've seen how he would respond in different kinds of circumstances, um, how he dealt with different situations, um, and I've studied Srila Prabhupada for many decades, trying to understand, you know, what to do and what not to do. And I think um, sometimes we introduce changes that Srila Prabhupada would not approve of. And we find various ways to rationalize those changes, and it seems very reasonable. But that's the the danger, that Maya is very powerful. The force of illusion is very great, and um, we can make mistakes. It happens. It happens all the time, at least for me. Uh, you may have a different experience, but my experience is that, you know, Maya is ever present, and it's a never-ending battle. So so that's the benefit of a spiritual master, that you have someone with superior intelligence, uh, whom you can place inquiries before, and get answers to questions, um, so that you don't have to risk making a mistake. Anyway, that's my two piece. Thank you again for a very nice class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, 100%. Dr. Prabhu, thank you for sharing your wisdom. And 100% right. So, like I was saying earlier as well, the core principles of Krishna consciousness are not up for interpretation. And the idea is not that we whimsically make changes in the principles or even the practice of Krishna consciousness. What Srila Prabhupada specifically is talking about is some of the externals, and there, as he talked about, right, one must go forward in their Vaishnava dress or any other dress for the purpose of preaching. So my comments were really in that context of, and of course, Guru Sadhu Shastra, take the advantage of the spiritual master's advice and guidance, and not whimsically decide to do something and justify it as That's only an external. So our intelligence is limited. So we need to understand that as well. Thank you, Tarka Prabhu, for sharing that. Anything else anybody has to add or share, or any questions? Okay. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.